Welcome to Completing the Puzzle with Jason DeFranco. I'm your host, Matt Doolittle. I am here with Mr. Jason DeFranco.
That'd be me.
How are you, sir?
I'm great. You?
Good. And look at this. We're evolving.
Yeah, we're all sophisticated and stuff.
We are getting there, and we're kind of starting a series now during the podcast. You know, we've kind of jumped around here and there, and you came up with the idea of kind of setting a tone for the next few episodes.
Sure. Having kind of a continuum.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the theme of this one is, you know, finally setting forth on doing something, setting forth on having an initiative for something.
Yep. Seize the initiative.
Seize the initiative, and that's the title of this episode. And what do you mean by that exactly?
That means take action. Be proactive instead of reactive. I mean, most people are reactive. The definition of initiative is the ability to assess and initiate things independently. Most people don't do that. They wait for someone to tell them something needs to be done.
It's to kick off something. It's to start a podcast, start a business, start an online store type thing, right?
Yep.
And what do you think is kind of the hindrance that people don't do to get to that point? What's kind of their wall?
Oh, man, there's a bunch of them, but it's usually fear, ignorance, or weakness. And ignorance isn't stupidity. Ignorance is not having all the information. They're not aware of how much better something could be if they took control, responsibility for it. It's, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of attention. Some people don't want the limelight. They're like, if everyone's looking at me, every little thing I do, they're going to criticize. Fear of isolation. If you go off and do something on your own, that means you're on your own for a little while, or maybe a long while. Do you really want to do that and be isolated from other people?
Why does anybody fear that? I mean, they always say, ask a question. The worst anybody can say is no.
Right.
What do you think that they're fearing out there? You went through a line of it, but why fear it?
Rejection hurts. If you're going to ask a question, the answer might be no, and how do you feel after that answer is no? Mm-hmm. Does that make you feel like less? If it does, it makes you more afraid to try the next time.
Was there a fear you had venturing out on your own, with Chad to start, Team Solutions Dental, which is the overall kind of big company that, you run? Was there a fear that you guys had to jump over of going, we're going to go from working for these corporate entities, we're going to go from, having people take care of stuff to, I guess we'll do it on our own.
Well, sure. I mean, the fear is, what are the things I don't know? What are those things that I'm just not exposed to yet that are going to come up that I think I'm prepared for, but until it hits you in the face, you don't even know it exists?
Taxes, laws, this, that.
Oh, yeah, all the regulatory stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because Team Solutions Dental is, it's a FDA-regulated business type thing, where there are restrictions and everything. So when you got into that, what were kind of the biggest ones you didn't expect to hit you?
Biggest things, insurance. Insurance is phenomenally, health insurance is very expensive.
Yes.
All insurance is expensive. It's the biggest thing we have after payroll. After payroll, the next biggest line item on our financial is insurance costs.
Is it the cover your butt insurance, or
it's everything?
It's all the stuff you have to worry about.
Of course, there's liability insurance, there's product liability insurance, there's building insurance, but there's all kinds of other stuff. We have management practices insurance.
What is that? I've never heard that before.
If someone accuses you of doing something wrong, whether it's being preferential based on something you're not supposed to, or sexual harassment, or offensive behavior, all those things that people can just say you did, and all of a sudden there's a problem, whether you did or didn't. Those kinds of things have become such a big deal that's part of corporate insurance now, where if some random person just says, you discriminated against me, and it's not true, and you know that they know it's not true sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a misperception, but sometimes it's just plain not true. But you got to spend huge amounts of money with attorneys just to prove you didn't do anything wrong.
Wow.
And it's crazy. So one common part of corporate insurance now is management practices, is the idea that if someone makes some kind of a crazy litigious claim against you as a person, the insurance kicks in to pay legal bills until it's cleared up to a certain point.
Geez, I didn't. Okay, so that could be a hindrance from people, trying to venture out on their own and do all that. So, I mean, what things do you do initially when you guys, even decided to start the lab and start to venture out on your own? What was kind of the steps you did towards that, to making that initial all right, we're going to go do our thing?
Well, we've talked before about writing business plans and things like that. Of course, we did all that stuff and looked at our market. And we looked at the people that we wanted to be involved with and the kinds of things we wanted to do. And that formed our culture. That formed the mission, vision, and values and those kinds of things, which were essential. But a huge part of it was just deciding to get up and do it. That was the initiative thing. It was, this sounds like a good idea. All we're doing is talking. Okay, let's go look at a space. It's really hard to get started on something sometimes. You can think about it for a while, but actually getting up and doing it seems like a really daunting step. But the thing is, as soon as you take that first step, the next step comes naturally.
Do you think having a partner on your side to do that helps? Somebody to push you, and then you push them, and then you push someone else. Like I've always thought, I'm missing that one person in my life that's going to push me that way.
A buddy system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Workout buddy. It doesn't matter. Weight loss buddies. When you've got a buddy, they keep you honest. They keep you on your toes. We all want to be honest people, but we lie to ourselves all the time.
Well, you watch each other six. You kind of yeah. Hey, oh no, fix this, fix that. So I think that's an important thing to look out for. When you're trying to do that. You say words about beginnings are cool. What do you mean by that?
Well, think of synonyms for beginning or starting. You talk about a launch date. You talk about the genesis of the new thing. Commencing, the inception, the kick-up, all these things convey possibilities.
Words you slap up on the wall or the whiteboard.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Starting something is really cool. Maintaining it, even there, maintain, doesn't sound nearly as cool.
No.
But beginnings are cool. People just need to stand up and do it. Don't sit there and talk about it. That's the biggest thing. Everyone's waiting for the right time.
Do you think, like, listening into some of those guys that are the, Tony Robbins of the world, and I think it's Gary Vee and all those guys that are like these motivational speakers,
right?
Get up and go do something. Go do it. Do you think that these guys are making money off of telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So they're giving you the words to get going. Coming from somebody who has done it. Do you think it's good to listen to those guys, or is it more like you're just finding yourself a crutch to push yourself?
Well, starting something, doing something, taking the initiative is a change. And people don't change because of external influences. People change because of internal influences. So it may be that external influence gives you an idea. It may be that you have the idea and you really want to do it, but you needed a cheerleader to get you out of your chair to start. And those are great. That's not a bad thing. What's a bad thing is the people that listen to them for 40 years say the same things, and that person still hasn't done anything.
They buy 900 books that are all just self-motivation.
I'm working on myself. I'm doing self-improvement. I'm reading about getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are you doing to get better? I read all the books.
Oh, yeah. No.
But what are you doing?
Yeah, and a lot of the books are, the 7 Habits, and you've brought that up a lot, that everybody here should read that. And we have a series internally, it's called HR Reading Corner, where we actually spotlight some of those books along the way.
Sure.
What are some of the biggest influences you had in pushing you?
No, we're still on 7 Habits. It's always going to come back to that one for most of these kinds of things.
That's a big one.
Habit number 1 is be proactive. It means take the initiative, don't wait to be acted upon, but act upon things, and then realize where you have control and where you don't. Make sure you're spending time on things you have control over. The problem there is most people have a really skewed perspective about what they can influence. They say things like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it, or it is what it is. Well, those kinds of words are by definition reactive, apathetic words and expressions. What are you going to do about it? Which part of it could you influence? They need to be thinking like that. Because if all you're going to do is focus on the things you have no control over, guess what? That's 99.9999% of the universe.
Yeah.
You only have control over a very small part. Focus on that part and it gets bigger.
Well, what motivates you in the morning? What motivates you to get going? Besides obviously putting food on, and congratulations on your recent engagement.
Oh,
by the way,
thanks.
he's off the market, ladies. Don't try. But what motivates you besides that? The basics of life, of putting food on the table, keeping a roof over your head, all those kind of cliche things. What kind of motivates you to get going to do the stuff you do every day?
I don't want to do a whole series on the 7 habits, but one of them, Begin with the End in Mind, has an exercise where you think about what you would like people to say at your funeral. And that hits me particularly right now because I just lost my father and I delivered the eulogy at his service. Mm-hmm. And I like to write. I like to talk, obviously. I write 10-page speeches in half an hour, normally. It comes naturally. I'll do one revision to correct grammar and make it sound a little bit better. But I don't write and rewrite and edit my own stuff. When I wrote my dad's eulogy, it took me 3 days. It was 5 pages long. And I had 5 minutes to deliver it. I think the pastor was unhappy with me because it was 9 minutes and 50 seconds by the time I was done. But, it was agony because I was trying to cover an entire life in 5 pages. And that's impossible. I rewrote and rewrote and rewrote it. It was almost a joke how much I edited and changed. But I did that because I wanted it to come out right. Because in the 7 habits, the Begin with the End in Mind habit has an exercise where you imagine yourself witnessing your own funeral service and hearing your own eulogy. And that hit me. I thought about that a lot. What do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? And one of the things that came out of that was, how at the end of Saving Private Ryan or at the end of Schindler's List, they're at a cemetery. And it's someone paying respects to someone who gave up something for their sake. And in each of those cases, there's a huge number of people. Saving Private Ryan goes there and brings like 40 members of his family. Schindler's List, the line is around the cemetery of people paying their respects. And I thought, you know what? I actually don't want a eulogy. I want like a Freeform town hall thing where people open mic night kind of thing, where anybody in the group can just stand up and go, "Hey, my life's better because I knew him. Yeah. I put my kids through college because he helped me become a manager or an executive. Things about my life are better because no one took a chance on me and he did." I want to say things like that. Of course, I want to be known as, he was a smart guy. He was a good businessman. He was a good father. He was a good family man. But I mostly want to know that I had an impact on other people. So what fires me up in the morning is how am I going to impact other people? It's why we do the podcast. The idea of the podcast was, hey, other people could benefit from this. We could help other people.
Yeah.
They could hear these stories and go, I relate to that. That makes sense. And that's why we decided to start doing it. And that gets me going in any direction. And
I will say you do, you pull people aside here. You're not just a hands-off type of, owner, president and everything. You get engaged with stuff. You help people out. You go talk to them. And it's not just always business.
Right.
I think part of that inspiration that you put out there is that, no, I'll pull you something like, hey, how's life? How's the things?
Right.
What's going on? We talked about a little thing with me going on earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I think you have that general interest, and I think that's something a lot of companies don't do with their owners. They don't do that. I'll even say, a couple weeks ago, Chad took me out golfing.
Yeah.
We went to Top Golf.
Nice.
It was like, oh, okay, I get to go out with one of the owners and hit some balls. That's cool.
Yeah.
That initiative and one of the things that you sent me when we were setting up for this was the ignorance on it. Why they don't do it. So explain that a little bit. What would be their ignorance? It's just, there's Google. You can Google whatever you do. I mean, it's so easy to start a business. There's LegalZoom.
Yeah.
You can start a business tomorrow. You can go to the bank. You can get an account. Like what kind of keeps that? What's that ignorance part?
Well, a lack of awareness of how much control you could exert. Most people are very comfortable saying things are bad and there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I take care of my stuff, but the rest of the people don't, and it's not my responsibility. It's not my problem. It's easy to abdicate responsibility. And that's what happens in totalitarian governments. The people don't want the responsibility, so they give it up to the government, and pretty soon the government's a terrible monster because the people gave it up. You know, we talk about that politically in our country about, you know, how much do we give up? How much freedom do you give up for security? How much responsibility do you give up for safety? How much, you know, we build lots of safety nets culturally. And some of those safety nets are in place of people owning their own values and contributions. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. One of the problems is if you're going to be proactive, it means you're accepting responsibility for your thoughts and actions. If you accept responsibility for your thoughts and actions, you accept responsibility for where you are right now because it was your thoughts and actions that got you there. And you can say, well, you know, circumstances. Yeah, that's only so much of it, though. So by extension, if you're accepting that responsibility for where you are right now, it's your fault. If you haven't achieved things you want to achieve, it's your fault. Well, that's a very uncomfortable thing to say.
Yeah.
I didn't not finish college because I was lazy. I didn't finish college because this, that, and the other happened. You know, we have our own internal narrative of why things haven't worked out. But we spend way too much time on that. If we spent 1/10 the time that we spend defining ourselves and defending ourselves on just going out and doing more things, we wouldn't have nearly as much to apologize for.
Is it because people just don't push themselves enough, or is it they just sit there and blame, you know, you know, I didn't go for my run today because it was, you know, raining outside, or
Sure.
It's a little too hot. I'm not going to.
Some of that's just discipline, but the initiative piece of it is I accept that where I am right now is my fault, and I know what I'm going to do about it. As opposed to, it's probably someone else's fault, so there's probably nothing I can do about it, so I'm not even going to try. And it's insidious. You know, it doesn't sound that dark and menacing when we do it to ourselves. To ourselves, there's a whole list of excuses. There's, I'm too busy, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, my mom doesn't feel good, my sister needs my help. There's always things. And the thing is, there's always going to be things. There's never going to be a time when there aren't things that could be sapping away your time, your resources, and your energy. There always will be. There's an infinite amount of things out there.
Well, and I would say I would look at it something like what the world has gone through for almost the last 2 years now. You know, COVID. You know, look at
Sure.
And I think a lot of businesses were created from COVID that you know wouldn't have existed before, but there were also a lot of businesses that got lost because of it. Tell me how you kind of navigated that as a push. I mean, something that was completely out of your control, and what improvements were you able to make with something that was out of your control?
Oh, all kinds of things. We've fixed all kinds of systems. We've gone through a ton of stuff. Re-education of team members, further education of managers. We've grown new managers. It's been an incredible amount of stuff that we've done that makes the place better, makes it better to be here, makes it better to get things done, makes it better to rely on people. And yeah, we couldn't predict that one.
You can't predict a meteor is going to hit either,
Right.
But, you know, you got to work around it, I guess.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're taking initiative, you're accepting accountability for the results. If you're accepting accountability for results in the future, how do you know what those are? You're saying ahead of time, okay, win, lose, or draw, I accept how this goes because I chose it. Well, what if it fails? You have volunteered to take the blame for a failure in advance of it happening without even knowing if it's going to happen. That's a tough thing. That's you got to be really honest with yourself about whether you can accept it.
Whether you can get through it. Another thing you brought up was kind of weakness. Why would you say that someone wouldn't, you know, kind of kick off their own stuff because of a weakness?
Well,
is that like
fear and weakness are very close together.
Yeah.
Some people should not be responsible for other outcomes. What I mean by that is some people don't have the will to make it through tough times. Some people don't have the integrity to stick with an idea. Some people don't have the competence to manage other people or to manage a business. It's more a matter of knowing what you're good at and playing to that. There are always going to be leaders. There's also always going to be followers. And if you are weak at leadership but strong at followership, that is where you should be. It's better for you there. Some people are paralyzed by the fear of decision making. And if that's how someone is, they can always work to improve that. But if that's their nature, they should look for where they can play to their strengths. Leadership isn't a zero-sum game. It's not a litmus test. Being in charge or taking the initiative is a good thing according to your strengths. Don't do it outside of your strengths. It's tragic to see people watch someone do something and think they can do it too. Every cable channel has the disclaimer, please do not attempt these acts as you see them, whether it's a trapeze act or an episode of Jackass. It doesn't matter.
Oh, well, look, I'm not going to be Johnny Knoxville. Don't worry about that. I'm not that dumb. But I think that there's something to be pulled from that, in that, you look at people, and I think that a leader has a point where they can be an influence to people and help them.
Sure.
And give them an idea of how to do that way.
A leader must influence others. That's the definition of leadership. If you're not influencing other people, you're not a leader by definition.
And do you make that a conscious effort?
Absolutely.
Like, do you,
always.
We have a system, or a kind of a course, I guess, where it's a shadow Jason program going on. We're doing it today. We've done it last week. We're doing it, every week. And why do you think that was important for you to say, have an hour with me, or have, I guess it's like 4 hours on a Monday, which is one of your busiest days.
It is.
Monday and Tuesday are your, meeting, power through everything days. Why do you think that was important for you to say, you know what, I'm going to have someone, follow me around?
Couple of reasons. One is, as we've grown as a company, people don't see me minute by minute anymore. At the beginning, I was sitting in the middle of the room. Everybody saw me all day. If they had a question, if they had a concern, if they want to know how I felt about something, it was easy. Mm-hmm. At the size that we are now, that's not possible. I have to have time to do my own work too, Jeff Bezos said it's not his job to make 1,000 decisions a day. As a CEO, it's his job to make one really good one, and he's got to have the time and the space to pick the right decision out of that mess and handle that one thing well that guarantees the future of the company. You can't do that if you're wading through the crowd all the time. So it's really a challenge, because I like people, and I like the people that are here. We have an exceptional group of people. But I got to be up in my office doing my job part of the time. So we started to create some constructs, because I did not want people to feel disconnected. I didn't want that, corporate, in quotes, with negative connotations, kind of feel.
Because we're over 100 people now.
Over.
I see the orientation list come through, every other week or so, and it's pretty big right now.
Yeah, I think we're 112 with the two trainer coordinators we hired.
Well,
it's a lot. But so we started to create some ways for people to reach me if they needed something. Obviously, I've got an open door policy, but I'm working, so what do you need? And I thought, one of the things that people need to understand is the other side of that. Look behind the curtain, know what's going on at the top, that it's not just memos and emails and announcements. It's not just, meetings where we pass around the donuts or something. There's a lot of stuff happening, and it's happening with a lot of intent. That's the biggest thing. I wanted people to know the intent. We just finished a meeting today. We talked about a certain employee, an employee that is challenged sometimes, that struggles with certain things. And we talked openly. We didn't say anything we wouldn't say right to that employee, but we were kind of brainstorming, how do we help this person get to the next level? How do we help them diminish their weaknesses and play to their strengths so they can become better than they are right now? And how do we manage the people around them who may have resistance to that person moving up because they've seen those weaknesses? It's important that we don't come across as blind to someone's failures, but we also have to give people opportunities to get past them.
So let me jump on that real quick. Mm-hmm. Of looking at other employees and everything around that, like, how do you kind of incentivize them? And I know you always want people around you that are pushing for you to do better.
Yeah.
But how do you go to other employees that may be poo-pooing someone, for lack of a better term? Like, how do you go to them and go, come on? Like,
I use the fish.
Help them out.
I use the fish. We have two stuffed toy fish.
I have not heard this before.
You haven't heard the trout?
I haven't heard the trout.
There's one at Christina's desk, and there's one, my assistant has one. Mm-hmm. When someone does something that's just lame-brained, not makes a mistake, something that just, you know those words shouldn't have come out of your mouth, right? Yeah. It's a joke that we take the stuffed fish and whack them in the back of the head or whatever. Not a real fish. It's a
Right.
stuffed foam fish. And it's become a joke that if you get whacked with a fish, you better think about what you just said, because that really didn't make any sense. And it's done with a little bit of a sense of humor. Obviously, I'm whacking them with a trout, but and that's literally it. I take them aside and I say, look, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. If they have flaws, why don't we figure out how to help them fix those flaws? Or put people around them that balance out those weaknesses so that they can keep getting better and we can all get over this.
Because it helps everybody. It helps, push the team. One thing too, like, when someone does come to you with, I guess, business advice or how do I start a company or what should I invest in, and they want to kick off their own thing. What's kind of your first bit of advice to them, or what do you kind of push them towards?
I don't push. I ask questions. The first thing I really want to know is how committed are they to the idea? The idea of being an entrepreneur or their own boss, and the idea of the business that they're talking about launching. If they are not intensely passionate about both, they should not do it. It's too hard. Mm-hmm. It is way too hard, because if you're not intensely passionate, you'll give up and you will have wasted that time. And there's nothing worse than wasted time. So I don't try to filter people. Oh, well, you shouldn't be in business for yourself. I don't do that. But I ask them questions about what their passion is and why. And I give them advice if I think I can help. If I don't think I can help, I just say, gosh, I don't know much about that industry. And what you're suggesting sounds logical, but I can't weigh in on the business idea. As far as the entrepreneurial spirit, I weigh in on that immediately. I tell them, this is going to be incredibly hard. Are you ready for the hard times? Mm-hmm. Are you ready to go without a paycheck? Are you ready to have people tell you you're crazy and that you're going to fail? Are you okay with those things? Because no one's waiting with a yellow ribbon and a parade for you. That's not how it works. You're going to be trampled. You're going to be run down. You're going to be criticized. You're going to be attacked. Every single decision you make is going to be put under a microscope. You okay with that? Because that'll get old fast.
Yeah.
If you're not thoroughly passionate about what you're about to do, don't. It's not worth the hassle.
All right, so I got a Shark Tank moment right here.
Oh, God, here we go.
Shay knows this, our producer. She knows this. Okay. You know Salt Bae, the dude that comes over to your table, chops up everything, and then does the little salt thing?
I actually don't know that, but okay.
I'll show it to you. Anyway, I've got this idea for a thing called Pork Bae.
Pork Bae.
Pork Bae, where I walk out and slap you with a pork chop, and then I put it on the table, and then sprinkle my sauce on it, or my seasoning, and then it's $600, like he's charging for him to come out and do that. And he's got a little producer that comes with him with his salt. Thoughts?
Cool.
And it's a random person at the table that just gets slapped with a pork chop.
On TV?
It would be TV. It'd be just its own restaurant.
So, not a publicity stunt.
No.
It's a
legit restaurant where a table of 8 people, you don't know which one's going to get slapped with the pork chop, but they get slapped with the pork chop.
I think it's a terrible idea.
Dang it. Shay, I guess we're not doing it.
I think any business based on a novelty concept is flawed. It doesn't matter if it's the hottest thing today. It doesn't matter if it's what everybody's screaming for right now.
Yeah.
If it is novelty based, I think it's a bad idea. It doesn't mean people don't succeed. People absolutely succeed.
This guy's getting $600 to
I understand.
Salt on a steak.
And people paid $17 for a pet rock once. I don't know where that company is today. And that's the difference between a product and a company. You can have a gimmick, you can have a product, you can have a novelty, you can have an idea that you trademark and sell to somebody else. Mm-hmm. But if it's a business, it's meant to grow, it's meant to provide something, including employment, it's meant to be healthy, it's meant to hold a place in the community, it's meant to do a bunch of, enlightened things, let's call it. If you're not doing those kinds of things, doesn't mean you can't have a business. It's just not one I'm going to encourage somebody to do.
Right. Well, I mean, my thing would be...
I like having fun, but...
Yeah, mine would be a gimmick anyway. But so, in pushing that initiative, is that something you looked at in the long term? So, obviously, and we, brought it up, the big long-term company is, you make teeth. We build things that people obviously need for a long run.
Sure.
So when you were looking at, like, what do I want to invest my life in? you know, because I mean, it's a giant part of your life. It's a giant part of other people's lives. Is it that long-term longevity of a business that you kind of were like, yeah, that'll, it's not like people aren't going to need teeth.
Build something that endures. Everybody wants a legacy. Everybody wants a legacy. They want to leave something behind that shows they were here. And some people do it through their kids, through their church, through any number of different things. In my case, I decided I wanted to do it through business. I decided that I wanted to have an impact. Like I said, you know, my end in mind story of having kind of an open mic night at my funeral was, that means I have to have a positive impact on a lot of people. How am I going to do that? Well, I could become a teacher. I could become a writer. I could become a motivational speaker. Yes, I could join the clergy. I could influence people religiously. I could do a bunch of things. I decided on business because it had a dual benefit. One is I could influence the people around me, and two is I could provide gainful employment for them. It's not just, you know, in a church, the people go there for something that they're seeking, but they don't get a concrete material benefit from going to the church. When they go to a motivational speaker, they're paying to listen to the speaker. When you go to work, you get paid. So here, I could be having a positive monetary impact on their lives and influencing with thought and deeds and actions so that I could be creating a larger group of people that benefited from what I did. And that increases the odds of me having open mic night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and how does it, you know, is one of the incentives that you kind of have for yourself is, I know we have a program where we do kind of, you know, free work. We help people out with everything because, you know, teeth are a big part of your life.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my dad had, until he finally got his dentures, you know, he was miserable and everything. So, I mean, it's a big part. So is that part of the feeling of when you got into this business of, you know, I want to feel good about what I produce?
Absolutely. If we were making cell phone covers, I wouldn't be passionate about it. In fact, someone asked me about another business venture not long ago that I was starting, and they said, I'm noticing a pattern. I said, what? He says, everything that you do business-wise is designed around helping someone or improving someone. You don't do anything about just making money. And I said, no, because it's easy to make money. It's really, people don't think it is. It is. Once you understand how to make money, it's not that difficult. What's difficult is making a difference. So I don't really want to be involved in a business if it doesn't help in some way.
Yeah.
And I've been pitched by a couple of people, you know, wow, we'd love to have your management on this, you know, join our board kind of thing. And that's flattering, but if it's not something that's going to help people, I won't get excited about it.
Yeah.
It's neat, it's clever, it's fun, it's cool, but I won't get excited about it. And if I'm not excited about it, I don't want to devote my time to it.
Because you need to feel something.
Yeah.
You want that kind of, you know, the butterfly feeling.
Time's the only thing I can't get more of. So if I'm devoting my time to something, I've got to be passionate about it. It's got to be something that matters. I could be spending the time with my kids. Why not? If something's going to pull me away from playing with my 4-year-old right now, it's got to be something meaningful. It's got to be something important.
Mm-hmm. And you know, for any entrepreneur or anybody out there, they're starting that. Is it one of those things where, you know, you could do something? You could, you know, you could make, I don't know, let's look at Tony Stark and make weapons, and then all of a sudden you want to turn around and be like, oh, I'm going to be Iron Man and actually do good things. Like, I mean, you can do something to just do it, but having that meaning behind it is a big deal.
Well, yeah. It's funny. If you look at most major philanthropists historically, you know, you look at all these libraries named after Carnegie or something. Well, most of the industrialists at the beginning of the century and the last century, those people were kind of jerks.
Oh, they were horrible people.
They were
if you really look at
not nice people.
No.
They were aggressive, abusive. They were, I mean, fist fights sometimes with them. Cornelius Vanderbilt, I mean, was famous for his physical prowess.
Yeah.
If he doesn't like you, he's going to knock you down physically. He's not just going to try and buy you out. He's going to beat you up. And yet, after they amassed their fortunes and had their empires, they started donating money to things.
Started doing nice things.
They started cleaning up their image. They started creating a legacy that says, "Oh yeah, he was aggressive on the way up, and then he started helping." Look at Bill Gates today. No one would say that Bill Gates was not a shrewd, vicious businessman, not as a human being, but as a businessman. I mean, most of their policies bordered on illegal regularly. There were regular investigations about whether this deal or that deal or embedding Windows in this or that was a violation of something, of some antitrust thing or something. They were always in trouble for something or on the verge of being in trouble for something. And now, all anyone knows is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. People almost forget that Microsoft is what got him there because he's investing all this money and all this effort into philanthropic work, which is great. It's because when you get to a certain point, you say, you know what? Yeah, the money, the business, the prestige, it's not quite enough. Something's still missing. I need to feel that I've done something meaningful. And the acquisition of wealth, while fun, isn't meaningful in and of itself. What's meaningful is what you then do, what you do for other people, what you do for the community, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I relate that to, I'm a big Disney historian and everything, and I've read 3 biographies on him. One made by Disney where it makes him look like, the baby Jesus, the middle one where it's kind of this, and then the other one where it's like, yeah, he was a drinker and a smoker and yelled at everybody and threw a bunch of stuff. So it's like, you got to find, and then look at it now, everybody looks at Disney and they think he's...
Grandfather.
Yeah, he's Grandpa Disney walking through here cleaning up the streets.
Holding Mickey Mouse's hand.
But back in the day, the only reason everything's there is because of Roy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's when you really start looking into people. It's like, yeah, like if you read anything on Steve Jobs,
sure.
Whew.
Look, Ray Kroc, McDonald's.
Oh yeah,
all of them, all of those kinds of people. At some point, were viewed as villainous, and at another point, were viewed as great stewards.
Do you think you need to have that ruthlessness to kick something off? To have that, that fire in your belly to be like, no, I'm just going to be a jerk for a little bit.
You've got to have the passion. And you've got to have the will. How that comes out in different circumstances differs from person to person. I think it's very common. If you ask people who have known me for the last 10 years, there are people who will say, he is a jerk. There are people who will say, hey, when things don't go well, he gets angry, and then something bad happens. He'll kick a door or whatever. There are people that will say that I'm far too aggressive. There are people that will say I'm far too judgmental. There are people that will say, I hold a grudge, and if you cross me, don't ever ask me for anything again. Those are all valid statements. Based on the situation, I have been that way in different situations. I still am. I'm human. I have flaws and desires and everything else, just like anyone else.
Well, I want you to tell us this one story that, I've heard you bring it up in the orientation meetings and everything about, you found out somebody was bad-mouthing the company, and then you confronted them. Kind of tell us that one.
Well, I'll give you the short version.
Yeah, give us a short version, as much as you can.
It came to us through a couple of clients that someone was categorically lying about us. It wasn't opinion. He wasn't trying to say he was better or that he didn't think we were as good as we thought we were. He was categorically lying about the sources for our materials and for our products. He was categorically lying about our employment practices, just saying anything he could to try and win some business by discrediting us. And I don't know why he thought it would work, because it never works. It occasionally works in a very short term. Almost immediately, people turn on the person that acts that way. But he did, and rather than get into a mudslinging thing, we just worked on getting more of his clients to come over to us without saying a thing about him, just doing it right, staying above board. And we did, and he had to scale down his operation. And I saw him at a public setting, and he didn't know it was me, and he was talking about us. And he was saying that we had done something unethical to get business away from him, that he couldn't understand why he was losing work, but that we must be cheating somehow, kind of thing. And I confronted him. I said, hey, my name is Jason DeFranco, and you're talking about my company right now. And I said, I would have thought you learned your lesson. You lied about us. And therefore, We competed more vigorously against you than we do against most people. I mean, we're pretty aggressive competitors in a healthy way. And we just focused on you a lot more, and you lost some business, and that probably hurt. But I would think you would have learned your lesson. Stop saying things that aren't true, because it's a karma thing, man. It's just this time we're the architects of the karma instead of just happenstance.
Do you think people looked at it as, you targeting that, whatever that the company was as, a ruthless thing, or
Yes.
something as a strong business?
No,
practice?
I had several other business owners who witnessed the conversation.
Yeah.
Who told me they didn't think that was appropriate. And I said, why? I'm competing in the appropriate arena. We are competitors. I am trying to get business away from him. I'm not undercutting his prices unfairly. I mean, we actually charge more than he does. I'm not saying anything about him. I don't even bring him up. I am just talking about our value proposition and making sure that we hit all of his customers when we're out marketing.
Yeah, and I always found that as a bad business practice. Not what you did, but I remember, and I look at this as when SeaWorld was going through their problems, and they would publicly address it against PETA, against these people, against the people that made that documentary about him. And I'm going, why even acknowledge it?
No, don't get into
Don't
a fight
acknowledge
like
the
that.
competition.
No.
That's a bad business strategy.
No, if something needs to be clarified, if some factual error has been produced by someone else, I think you have an obligation to correct the error.
If that's out there, but I don't think you don't acknowledge the competition.
No. And you certainly don't get into a fist fight in the public forum.
No.
It doesn't serve any purpose, and it's bad business. Operate your business above board. Keep on the high ground. People are going to do unethical things. When you have enough resources, you can punish them in an ethical way by winning in the competitive environment. I expect that other labs will fail, especially if they're unethical.
Yeah, and I was stuck in a Star Wars marathon, so I know Obi-Wan had the high ground, and that's why he won. So in kicking off a business, there's a lot of stress in it. There's an opportunity there. There's everything. But, why do it? You could have gone to work for other labs.
Yep.
You talk about it. You got fired from the last big lab you worked for.
Yep.
Then you went and started your own one. You could have just gone to another lab. You could have, I don't know, put your tail between your legs and gone and done something else. Why do it?
Would have been a lot easier.
But would it have been as fun?
Obviously not.
I think you've had a lot of fun with this.
I have. So here's the thing. Why seize the initiative? Why be proactive? Well, because integrity feels good. You decide to do something and you do that thing, you have an endorphin rush, even if it's something simple. I said I was going to cut the grass after lunch. You go cut the grass after lunch. You feel good when it's done, even if you don't particularly like cutting the grass, because you committed to something and you did it. That's integrity. And integrity feels good. The other thing is, we talked about what can you influence versus what can you not influence. It's a very small scale of the universe is actually under your control. But if you focus on those things, your stress level drops because you realize, it's kind of like the Serenity prayer. You realize, I cannot do anything about peace in the Middle East as an individual. But you know what? I can get this yard cleaned up. So that's where my attention's going to go. I can teach this kid how to read. I can do, when you identify the things you actually can do and focus there, two things happen. One, your stress about the things you can't affect goes away because you're making a difference. Two, you discover that your influence grows. You end up having more control over time. Stephen Covey had a famous example in 7 Habits about a junior executive in a board meeting where, and I'm paraphrasing probably badly, but the idea was there was an executive running the meeting and he was always micromanaging. He was always giving a lot more detail than he needed to and always criticized the results when they came back. And it was water cooler talk. On the breaks in the meetings, everybody would talk about what a jerk the executive was for being so critical or never being satisfied with things. So this one junior executive gets an assignment, goes to do the assignment, and overkills the heck out of it. He considers every possible thing that the CEO might ask in the next meeting. He puts way more effort into it than is reasonable. But he knew he couldn't control his boss's reactions. All he could control was how prepared he was for them. So he came back into the meeting, and he makes his presentation, and the CEO goes around the room and criticizes everybody and gets to this guy and says, that was actually pretty good. Why don't you take this and this? And gives him more control, gives him more authority. Because that micromanaging boss was micromanaging out of fear. He didn't think anybody else would do a good job. So when someone finally did exceed his expectations, he gave that person a little bit more control. Well, after a period of time, that's the guy running the meeting. And while the water cooler people are like, oh, kiss ass, brown nose, whatever, the guy's moving up. Instead of trying to engage about the drama or the criticism, he's focusing on what he has control over, his piece of it. And he ends up in a much higher position because of it. And that happens over and over and over. When we focus on the things we can fix, we discover there are things on the borders that we couldn't have fixed yesterday that we can today because our influence has expanded. The other thing is opportunities appear. There's a famous piece by the, I think it was the Antarctic expedition, says, whatever you can achieve or believe you can, begin it now. No, it's, I forget, boldness. Boldness has power and genius in it. Because once you commit yourself to something, again, I'm paraphrasing, it's bad. Until one is committed, there is always hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Boldness has power and genius in it because once you commit yourself to something, all manner of support and assistance will appear that you never knew existed. And it's almost like things align themselves to you. We're going through a process right now. We're doing some fairly big moves in our community and business-wise in terms of alignment with other organizations and other industries, and we're just doing some really cool big things. And someone said to me the other day, can you believe all this stuff is lining up just right? And I said, I absolutely can. Because we've been aware of this one for a while, and we've been moving the pieces to prepare for this, and we've been aware of that company over there doing this, and we've been preparing for that, and there's going to be this quantum shift that happens that people are going to go, wow, that was incredible, that all happened at once. No, it didn't. It happened over a long period of time of negotiations and agreements and assisting each other and collaborations that have happened across multiple businesses for an extended period of time, prepping for an opportunity. And those kinds of things are invisible if you don't seize the initiative. If you're not out there looking for them, trying to make something happen, you'll never encounter them.
So it's a strategic choice.
Absolutely.
And is that kind of a big part of, and kind of wrapping up here, is that kind of a big part of it is laying out, things happen, you're going to go off your beaten path, you're going to go off your pattern, but is it a strategic choice in some of the moves you've made so that you get to that next point?
Absolutely.
In making that initial kickoff to the business, two guys making teeth, to now,
Sure.
we can't say what's going on, but it's a thing,
Yeah.
like you're at where you wanted to be.
Well, we're already 4 companies now. We're not just a dental lab anymore. We're 4 different companies right now. And the other thing is, sometimes you don't know what the next step is until you complete the one you're on. You want to say, I'm going to get to the top of that mountain. Well, when you get to the top of that mountain, you notice that in the distance, there's another mountain taller than this one. You couldn't see it before because until you got closer to it, you weren't aware it was there. But now that you've put in the effort to complete this phase, you can look ahead and go, oh, there is more. I didn't know if there was more past here. But by getting over the horizon, by getting around the corner, by committing to move myself out of where I was sitting, I can now see things better.
And to wrap up, and to this is something I like to do, is to any entrepreneur out there, anybody looking to get out of wherever the heck they are in some miserable job, what would you think would be the exact first step they need to do?
Forget even entrepreneurialism. Just think about being impactful and making a difference with yourself, with other people. Every meaningful endeavor begins with a choice by one person to get up and do something.
Well, there you go. I think that wraps it up pretty well. Thanks for listening and watching Completing the Puzzle with Mr. Jason DeFranco. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Matt.
And make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button. Send us some comments down below. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. We'll read it all. And until next time, peace and love.